Eva, thanks so much for your time today. Firstly, how would you define psychopathy?
So psychopathy is really a combination of a set of traits. It involves a lack of empathy and remorse as its affective piece. Interpersonally, these are people that are very grandiose. They tend to lie and manipulate other people. There's also an impulsive and irresponsible component to their behavior, and they're often engage in criminal and antisocial behavior. So those four aspects make up the condition of psychopathy.
And would you say that these people are born or made that way? What's the research say?
I would really say that there's two pathways. One does seem to be a more heritable pathway, where there is more of a genetic piece to things. And there is a second pathway that we know to be related to quite substantial maltreatment in early childhood.
And what percentage of the population do we know have psychopathy?
So estimates suggest around 1% of the population would have a diagnosable psychopathy.
And in the Radio National All in the Mind program, there was the advice that children can't be diagnosed as psychopaths despite displaying some or all of these traits. Can you explain a little further about why children are not usually given that label?
Well, typically we describe children that have psychopathic traits like a lack of empathy and lack of remorse as having callous, unemotional traits. So callous, unemotional traits refer to a set of symptoms involving that lack of empathy, remorse, a lack of interest about their performance in important activities, and very shallow experience of emotions. So they can turn their emotions on or off. So in childhood, we refer to these children as having callous and unemotional traits, but we know that only a small percentage of those kids, about 1 in 14, will go on to have adult psychopathy.
And is there any sort of treatment, or is there any sort of way to prevent them from taking that into adulthood?
Yep, so we don't necessarily have any effective treatments for adult psychopathy, which is why I focused a lot of my attention on trying to figure out how young can we see these callous, unemotional symptoms. And we can see them quite reliably by age 3. And so we have been working on developing treatments that try to prevent progression from callous, unemotional traits or lack of empathy to adult psychopathy.
So what do the treatments involve?
So the treatment that we've been working on, it's an adaptation of a treatment called parent-child interaction therapy. And that's quite a unique program in that you have the parent and the child come into the clinic. The parent wears an earpiece, a wireless earpiece, and you've got a therapist who's behind a one-way mirror. And the therapist is coaching the parent in the moment as they're interacting with the child. And they're trying to improve the quality of the parent-child relationship as the first target, and specifically the warmth of that interaction. The second piece is they're trying to manage the child's behavior by using reinforcers or rewards to get them to be more pro-social. And the third very novel aspect is we're trying to teach parents and children how to be better at recognizing and responding pro-socially to others' emotions, particularly distressed emotions like sadness and fear.
The mother in the All in the Mind program said that her son lacked empathy for others who seemed distressed or even animals that were in pain. How then would this system of reward system and trying to build warmth work with a child like that didn't seem to respond to other people's emotions?
Well, what we know is happening within the child that is seeing these distressing emotions in other people is that the parts of the brain that respond to emotion and that respond to fear or distress are not activating like they are in other children. And that means the rest of the body isn't activating as well. They're not mimicking that emotion on their faces, which is a part of empathy, expression, and experience, and they're not experiencing that physiologically. So there's not that signal or that stop to have them stop engaging in a behavior that's going to hurt somebody else. But we believe that if we can target this problem in emotion and empathy very early in life when it's developing, that we can prevent all of the knock-on effects of that poor empathy development. So we think it's an issue of a lack of capacity, where we can teach that capacity in a very specific way.
So you can almost train them to empathise?
Yes.
And to recognise and react to other emotions?
Yes, and we can, with rewards, motivate them to want to respond in a pro-social way or pay attention to when other people are experiencing distress, which at the moment doesn't really engage their attention.
Mm. And why aren't they, do we know why, because children as young as 3, you say, are displaying these callous and unemotional reactions. Why isn't that empathy switch coming on?
Well, it's likely due to a biological or that sort of genetic heritable piece, that it's just not as active as it is for other children. And that has knock-on effects. So it actually influences then the way that their caregiver interacts with them. We see that even from 5 weeks old, infants that later develop callous traits at age 3 are less interested in their caregiver than they are in objects in their environment. So we believe that there's a process that's happening, a cycle where the parent is then disengaging from that child, expressing less warmth, less emotion to them. So not only are they less attuned to emotion, but now they've got fewer emotional signals, which makes the whole situation worse.
And how successful is this program?
We have seen really good success with the families that we've treated. So we've compared a group of kids that have callous unemotional traits along with antisocial behavior, and we've treated them in the clinic with our standard treatments and then our targeted treatments that focus on those key drivers for these kids. And we've seen that when they get this targeted treatment, they're much more likely to maintain their improvements after the program ends. Whereas those kids that get our standard treatments, they're deteriorating. They're getting worse when treatment ends. And we think that's because the standard treatments are not addressing the drivers of the behavior.
You're also working on a program that would help teachers in the classroom deal with this sort of behaviour too. What's the progress?
Yep, so we are especially interested in getting programs like this into schools, and that's because we know that of that roughly 7 to 10% of kids that have severe behavior problems, and at least half of those have callous unemotional traits, only 1 in 4 of these kids are actually getting the treatments that they need. And so we believe that by providing treatments like this in schools, where kids are already going every day, we're able to break down some of those access barriers. We're then also able to involve teachers in the intervention, because we've worked with schools to develop a version of our program that teaches teachers the skills, so they can be part of the solution as well. So we believe that by having parents and teachers working together, using the same skills, we're going to get much more benefit for children, and this will result in lifelong transformation.
But does that mean, though, that the teacher's having to focus even more on that one disruptive child in the classroom to the detriment of other children in the class?
Well, what we know is that when you've got a child with disruptive behavior, they're getting a lot of teacher attention, and that's negative attention. So that means that attention is not put on other children. But if a teacher is instead using their attention very selectively and focusing on whenever they can see those small positive behaviors, those behaviors are going to increase. So what we hope is that they're going to spend, and what we see is that they're going to spend less time giving attention to the negative behavior, more time to the positive behaviors, and that will mean more positive behaviors in these very problematic children.
So are you planning on rolling this out to multiple schools, or what's the next step?
So in 2019, we started working with Ingleburn Public School and 7 other schools surrounding them to deliver this program in a hub that sat at the Ingleburn Public School. We had really good results, and we then expanded to a new hub in Condell Park Public School and working with 6 schools around them. This year we actually extended to regional New South Wales with the help of a federal grant, and we've got 6 schools around a regional New South Wales school. We're also in the process of building a hub in a Catholic school in southwest Sydney. So the idea is that we will be able to scale this program across New South Wales and ideally eventually across the world.
Well, good luck, and thank you so much.
Thank you.